Hello and welcome to this lesson on punctuation. So today's learning objective is to demonstrate knowledge of commas, colons and semicolons. Okay, so we're looking at these three types of punctuation because they are important and they're a little bit more advanced. What I do tend to find is that students are pretty confident at using full stops, question marks, exclamation marks. Okay, so I don't really want to be going through this today. If you don't think that you are confident on using these types of punctuation, let me know in the chat and I can always create a video on it. Alternatively, you can obviously do a bit of research on this, but typically these punctuation marks obviously go at the end of sentences. Okay, so students are usually pretty confident on that. So that's why we're looking at commas today, colons and semicolons. Okay, I want you to be reflecting on how much do you already know. So we've got those three punctuation marks that we're looking at today on the left-hand side. I want you to be able to write these down or at least think which one's which. Okay, and just pause the video because I am going to show you the answers. Okay, so we've got colons, okay, the top one. And then we've got semicolons here, looks like a full stop and a comma underneath, and then we've got a comma. Okay, so these are the punctuation marks we're going to practice today. Okay, let's start off then looking at commas. So commas separate clauses in a sentence. Okay, if you're not sure what clauses are, they are words and phrases. Okay, they're either independent or dependent. I actually referenced this on the sentence types video that I've done, so feel free to look back at that or do a bit of research on that one. But hopefully it'll make sense on these examples that I'll show you. So we've got here, as the sun appeared in the sky, the birds started to sing. So there's a comma here. Let me just circle it. Okay, and we know that commas are used to separate clauses in a sentence. So just to kind of show you the different clauses here, we've got, as the sun appeared in the sky, that's one type of clause, and that clause specifically is a dependent clause. It doesn't fully make sense on its own, so it needs to be elaborated on and be attached to an independent clause. So the next one is an independent clause. So we've got here, the birds started to sing. So this clause makes sense on its own. That's why it's independent. Okay, but because we've got these two clauses, we have to put the comma in between them. Okay, let's have a look at this one. So we've got last night, it was so stormy, I couldn't sleep. So here we've got three commas, okay? Because there are two commas, sorry, because there are three clauses. So the first one is a dependent clause. Last night, okay? Of course, we need to continue that because it doesn't fully make sense on its own. So that's dependent. But then we've got two independent clauses. It was so stormy, I couldn't sleep. So both of those clauses make sense in their own, but the first one doesn't. So we've got three clauses in here, so we have to separate the clauses up, okay, with the commas. So if you do have your writing equipment to hand, please do get those examples down. They're really good examples. And hopefully it'll help you understand commas a little bit more. And obviously I've got a task for those of you that are a little bit more proactive in your learning. So I want you to write your own sentence using a comma. And for an ambition task, I want you to think about what could you do to ensure you include commas in your written work. So really think about that. If you're asked to write a story, how can you ensure that you actually use and include commas? What sort of things might you do beforehand, during, and after you've written? Okay. Right, pause this same slide and then we'll have a look at the next one. Okay, colons. So colons are commonly used before a list. Okay, but they can also be used when something announced is going to be explained further. So we'll have a look at this example. Again, please get this down because it's a good one to use. To make a cake, I will need a few things. Butter, sugar, and flour. Okay, so we've got the colon here. And then after it, we've got the three things being listed here. Okay, so this is where you often see colons being used. The next one, okay, the wedding was beautiful, but one thing disgruntled the guests, the food. So we've got a colon here, and then we've got this additional information being added on at the end, okay? So that one thing that disgruntled the guests was in fact the food. So again, get that one down because they're both good examples for how colons are used. And then I want you to use a colon in your own sentence. Okay, so write a sentence, include a colon in it. And for the ambition, why might a writer use colons in creative writing? What situations might call for colons to be used in creative writing? So have a think about that one. And again, pause this slide and then we'll have a look at the next one. Okay, semicolons then. This is probably my favourite type of punctuation. I'm a little bit of a geek. But semicolons are commonly used to separate two independent clauses, so they're clauses that make sense on their own, which are closely linked. So they're kind of, they're closely linked in topic. Okay, so I'll show you an example. They can also be used to separate longer worded items in a list. So remember the earlier one we had of butter, sugar, and flour? They're short, so we use commas for those, but you can actually use semicolons to separate longer phrases. So let's have a look at some examples. Martha has gone to the library. Her sister has gone to play football. So here we've got two independent clauses that make sense on their own. And we know that clauses have to be separated by commas at least. But because these two clauses are actually closely linked, okay, we've got one sister doing something and then the next clause is about the other sister doing something, okay? And because they're both independent, we can use a semicolon in between here. Alternatively, what you could do is put Martha has gone to the library and her sister has gone to play football, or whereas her sister has gone to play football. Okay, so you could put a conjunction in there. So if you're comfortable using conjunctions, that's great. But if you think actually, I want to be able to use semicolons, I just struggle with it, then whenever you have a compound sentence, and again, I've got a lesson on that, where you have a conjunction here. So let's say that this said, whereas, I do need to get an actual pen for this, so sorry about my writing. So Martha has gone to the library, whereas her sister has gone to play football. What you could do is basically get rid of that whereas, cross it out, okay, remove it, and just simply replace it with a semicolon, and it will enhance your writing and make you look super cool, super professional as well. Okay, so it's a nice, easy win. Okay, so the next one we've got, I need the weather statistics for the following cities: London, England, Paris, France, and Lisbon, Portugal. So notice here we've got the colon as well. Okay, that's made an appearance because we've got a list that's happening after. But we've got semicolons here. Okay, and these semicolons are kind of acting like commas. But we use semicolons more when a list is a little bit more sort of a little bit more detailed, okay, or longer phrases here. So that's why we've got the semicolons here. So again, get these two examples down. Okay, for a task then, I want you to write a sentence, including a semicolon. And then for the ambition task, how might you use semicolons in a cooking recipe? Okay, so think about when they might appear, how they might appear in a cooking recipe. So pause this slide, do the task, and then we'll continue with the lesson. Okay, so now we've got identification of knowledge. Okay, so this is where you're able to identify where do commas go, colons go, and semicolons go. Okay, so there's an image here to inspire you, so I'll read it out. To create my signature fiery sunset juice, you will need a few ingredients: carrots, oranges, and ginger. You will also need a juicer. It has to be powerful. So, if you are just thinking, I want you to think about what punctuation goes where, okay? If you're writing this down, pause it, write out the whole of these couple of sentences, and fill in the blanks here. What punctuation goes in between these phrases? So pause the video and then I'll go through this one. Okay, the first one is a comma. So if you were thinking of, you've written down a comma, big well done there. Okay, so commas separate clauses. So to create my signature fiery sunset juice, that's a dependent clause, you will need a few ingredients. Okay, we're continuing there. So we've got the comma here, so well done. You will need a few ingredients. Okay, so here we have the colon because it's preceding or coming before a list of things. Okay, so a really nice, easy way to use a colon. Then we've got carrots, oranges, and ginger. So we've got commas here separating the clauses or the list of things that you need. And then lastly, we've got you will also need a juicer. It has to be powerful. So we've got two independent clauses here that make sense on their own. So you could have a full stop in the middle, but because they are closely linked, okay, this sentence here, it has to be powerful. That is closely linked with this sentence. You need a juicer because it's the juicer that needs to be powerful. So having a semicolon there is a really nice way to use it. So if you manage to get that right, big well done. But if not, don't panic. Okay, just make sure you've got it written down and keep going back to it and practicing. Okay, so what I like to do is have a little practice here of application of knowledge. So this is where it really sort of starts to be embedded into your brains, okay, when you are practicing doing it. So I want you to create your own juice recipe now. Okay, you've seen my juice recipe of the fiery sunset. I've got many more. But create your own juice recipe and you can put in whatever you want to put in. Okay, but I want you to obviously practice writing out sentences, getting the list of ingredients that are needed, and I want you to make sure, obviously, you need to include full stops. I know we've not gone through them today, but most students are very confident with that. So please make sure you've got full stops if you need them, which you will obviously need them. Include commas, okay, so remember separating clauses, and have at least one colon, so maybe preceding the list, and include at least one semicolon. So that's two independent clauses that make sense on their own, that are closely linked, okay, and just putting in the semicolon in between them. And for the ambition, okay, include any other punctuation such as brackets, hyphens, or exclamation marks if you want to sort of advance your recipe a little bit further and practice using punctuation a little bit more widely, okay? So please do this task and pause this slide, and then obviously we'll just go on to the review. Okay, thank you so much. Big well done for everyone who's done that. So just to kind of come full circle then, the learning objective for today was to demonstrate knowledge of commas, colons and semicolons. So be thinking about how confident now are you on using and practicing writing and crafting sentences, including these punctuations, okay? It might be that you think commas you're still not really clear on, so you need more practice on. Colons you might be sort of in between. Semicolons you might feel really confident on. Okay, I want you to be honestly reflecting on where you're at this moment in time. You can always come back to this lesson. And of course, if you've got any questions or you want to show me some examples of your recipes and the use of punctuation in the chat, then you can do that as well. Obviously, I'll do my best to get back to everyone. So big well done and thank you so much for joining this lesson today.